Hi guys, I know there's been some issues with people having trouble getting through some of this electude work. I know I assigned a lot of work. If you check the assignments, I did reduce the amount of modules you guys need to do, and I did change the due date to this Friday. I apologize for giving too much work. It's hard to figure out how long some of this stuff's going to take you guys, and so I'm going to have to kind of adjust as we go. I did want to make a short video here to explain some stuff from Kirchoffs First Law. I think some people were having trouble with this module, and I wanted to kind of look at that. So let's jump into it. Hopefully you guys are working through this. I can see everything you're doing in Electude, so I am watching for progress, and grades are going to start going in the grade book starting today. So you guys do need to try to keep up with this. I know some of it can be really confusing and difficult, but take your time. You might have to reread sections. You might have to Google things. You might even have to YouTube some things. So here's the first page of Kirchhoffs First Law. Always start, please, by reading what's going on the right. Even if it doesn't make sense, you might need to reread some things a couple of times. Okay. It talks a little bit about what it means when a battery is discharged. And what we mean by discharging a battery is when we're using electricity from the battery. So just like you're using your cell phone throughout the day and then you see the percentage go down, you're discharging your battery because you're powering the various things on your phone. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about discharging. And then we also need to charge the battery, just like you charge your cell phone every night or whenever you do. Your car, when you're driving your car, you have to charge the battery. And what does that is the alternator. The alternator is run off of the engine via a belt, and the belt turns the alternator, and that produces electricity, which charges the battery. So if we look to this diagram on our left, we see arrows either pointing left or right. So you notice for alternator, we have an arrow to the left with a plus 22. That means it's supplying 22 amps of electrical current. Okay, so you can think about that as a net positive, like charging something. Okay, we see that 10 amps negative are going to our windshield wiper motor. That means that our wipers are on and they're taking 10 amps of current. So whenever you turn on any electrical thing in your car, your radio, your lights, your wipers, any of those things are going to take electricity. So they're actually going to be a load on the circuit. So some of that power is going to go to those different various things. And then you see your battery. It has 2 amps going to the battery. What the heck does that mean? We're not turning the battery on, we're charging the battery. So some of that current that the alternator is producing is going to charge your battery. You want this to be happening because if your alternator is not working, you're going to run out of electrical energy, which you need for your car, right? Your spark plugs need electricity to function. Your engine will actually die if your alternator is not charging. And then we see 6 amps going to the parking lights and 4 amps going to electric windows. So that means those things are actually being in use and they're taking electricity. So when we look at this, let's add these up. We got positive 22 minus 10, so that's 12, minus 2, that's 10, minus 6, that's 4, and minus 4, that makes 0. What Kirchhoff's law means is that all the electricity being either charged or discharged cancels out. It's being used somewhere. It's not just disappearing off into nowhere. It's either being used to power something like the wipers, or it's being used to charge something like the battery. So then as you work through these questions, you need to look and it says is the battery is supplying current and being discharged. So if we looked at that, it looks like the current is going to the battery. So it's not being discharged, it's being charged. So this would be false. It's not being discharged. The battery is being charged. True. Hopefully you guys can see that. I can move my head here. True. The battery is being charged, and then the alternator is producing a current. If we go up here, yep, the alternator is producing 22 amps of current. So it's producing electricity. So we can go like that. So as we go through this, we're basically just asking ourselves, is the is the thing taking electricity, producing electricity, or one or the other, right? It's either a positive amperage or a negative amperage. So the battery is kind of the one tricky one. The battery can either be being charged or it can be losing current. It can be charging something else. So in this case, this is a great example. Now the arrow from the battery is going to the left and it's positive. Okay, that means what's going on here is that the alternator is not producing enough energy to run all of the different things, the wipers, the lights, the windows, and charge the battery. So we're actually discharging our battery. If you are in your car and the car is shut off and you're listening to the radio and you're playing with the windows, or if you leave a light on in your car overnight, the battery will die because the alternator is not running. It's not producing any electricity to charge the battery. Eventually the battery will die. I'm sure most of you have had this experience. You go to start the car and it won't start. The battery's dead. You have to jump the battery. So in this case, the battery is actually discharging because the arrow is going to the left. It's going away from the battery. It's not charging the battery. So as you go through this, you should, whenever you add up all of these numbers, it should always equal 0. Kirchoffs law states that when you add up all of the currents in a system, they should equal 0 because there's some positive charging currents and there's some negative current being used, like in your wiper motors or in your windows. So hopefully this helps understand what's going on here. As you go through each of the questions, ask yourself, is electricity going into this thing or coming out of this thing? And really the battery is the one that's always going to be the one that's going to be a little tricky. Is the battery being charged or is the battery being discharged? So in this case, the battery is supplying current and being discharged, right? Electricity is coming out of the battery, so it's being discharged. It's losing charge. So it can't be being charged at the same time, and the alternator is still producing a current. If we look, there's still a positive 19 amps here, so the alternator is producing a current. Hopefully that helps you guys make sense of Kirchoff's law. I know there's a lot of new words in here that can be a little confusing, but it is a pretty simple concept once you kind of wrap your head around it. If you're having trouble with concepts like this, please Google it. If you Google Kirchoff's law, there's a lot of great information. If you go to YouTube and write Kirchoff's law, there are all kinds of people that can explain Kirchoff's law to you. I highly recommend Khan Academy. I know a lot of you guys probably use Khan Academy in other classes. It's a great resource. When you run into things you don't understand right at first, you need to reread, you need to do some research, talk to other people in your family. Try to get a hold of one of your classmates, write a question, a specific question in Google Classroom, or shoot me an email. Okay, those are kind of your choices. You got all kinds of choices. While we're not in actual school and we're working online, you guys are going to have to learn how to learn. It's probably the most valuable thing you can do. So please, when you hit something that you're not sure what to do, take a deep breath, reread through that information. If it still doesn't make sense, ask Google. If Google's not giving you any good results, change the keywords you're using. Change what you're searching for. Go to YouTube. Talk to other people. Okay, you guys can do this. And please don't hesitate to ask questions. Please put them right into Google Classroom and then the whole class can see them. Thanks guys. Take it easy.